All right, welcome back to the National Armor and Cavalry Collection of Fort Moore and their M1128 Stryker MGS. And we're going to start off with the right-hand side of the turret. Now this is, I guess you call it a cleft turret. It is an exposed gun with crew on each side. It is a turret, there's a turret basket, the crew rotate with it, they're just not in the same place as the gun. There are other vehicles out there like that. The Marder immediately comes to mind. Now one of the problems, of course, is if you're the TC and you're sticking your head out, well, you got a big gun to your left, you're only looking at the right-hand side. Similarly, the gunner is only looking at the left. But you do have the CPV, I keep calling it a CITV, because that's what it effectively is. But it's the Commander's Periscope viewer on this vehicle. And it's actually kind of difficult to get in and out of this. There's a footstep on the right, but you got to hoist yourself up a fair bit before you can even hit the footstep. And of course, if you're going down, you got to drop yourself a long way before you hit the seat. To my front is a broken caliber 50, a wooden caliber 50, with a very large turn ring. It is not a skate ring in the traditional sense that you unlock and you swing around. There's a push crank, you push down, and then you're able to crank the caliber 50 around, and then you do your fine aiming by moving, let's see, where's the pivot point? Yeah, you unlock this and away you go. Armored shield, well, in Iraq these things were pretty much necessary. 4 spare ammo cans in addition to the one that's up front, so we got 2 on the left into the front, and then there's 2 more in the rack behind. The hatch, well, okay, closes inward as you can see, so let's get down and close it, we'll see what it's like. Well, getting in was a little uncomfortable. And it was only made easier by the fact that the battlefield management system is not in front of me, it's been removed. So I would have to kind of work my knees down and then behind it. Legroom's kind of okay. The seat, let's see if this will adjust. Yeah, the seat would adjust a little bit. In terms of vision, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 periscopes. They're actually pretty good periscopes. For the 180 degrees that I have, I see rather well out of them, complete with the little blackout shades. The hatch gets dogged with this little item here. I have an auxiliary sight. It's got reticles for APFS DS, HEP-T, and HEAT-T. Battle sight for the AP round is about 1200. Heat would be next, also 1200, and HEP is 950 meters. There's a choke sight up top. It chokes up to 2400. I'm kind of curious what it chokes against. I would have to assume a BMP. All right, to the front, well, as I said, the battlefield management system has been removed. There's a repeater here for the driver's vision display. I'm going to assume that this is for the commander's periscope. On the right hand side is the control handle for the commander. Surprising amount of buttons. So we got the palm switch I'm familiar with. The trigger, of course, would be down here, you would think. Something important under here, under this cover, there are 2 red buttons. One's covered with start, and there's another one on the right. So presumably, depending on what combination of buttons you're pressing, you're either overriding the the gunner, or you're commanding your independent periscope. It's a little harder to control, I would say, than an M1 override, but okay. Forward is a hand elevation wheel for something. I'm wondering if it's to do with the CPV. There's a pipe that goes all the way back. And bore sight for the auxiliary sight. Manual firing device, that's the master blaster. It provides an electrical current. Hello, what have I got here? Let me look underneath here. Okay, well this is interesting. So I said I have a 180. I kind of do, but there's actually a couple of periscopes. There's one to my front left, one to my hard left, and they look under the gun. So I actually have some vision. Now a lot of it is blocked off by either the gun on the top or the front hull. And the left-hand side, I see as much gunner's hatch and gunner's periscopes as I do anything else. But at least there's something. It's not entirely blacked out. Let's see, behind me, fans, auto fans, so internal ventilation. There's a small little light, a reading light, radio speaker box, J-box for the radio, live push-to-talk, voice operated. Two radios can be listened to at the same time. One is a monitor only, and the other is a use. You can see what channels you're running on your radios here. Let's see. Well, that's pretty much it until you get to the controls on the left-hand side. So he has controls for the 2 grenade launcher salvos, the panoramic view, the CPV, so mast up or down, field of view, that's magnification, drift, focus, reticle, symbology, black hot, white hot. Gain control can be automatic or controlled. Search MERS. Interesting. So the display mode on this is panoramic day, panoramic thermal, gunner day, or with gunner thermal. So I can either select the periscope day or night, or I can select the gunner's sight day or night on this one monitor screen. Let's see, turret power, autoloader power, fire control system, GTD would be the gun turret drive, panel test, display power, and well, that's pretty much it. Now I can reach, it's not the easiest thing to do, but I can reach over and I can hit the buttons for the ammunition select and even the CCP, the autoloader mode and so on. Not so easy to get at, but I can get at them. Actually, one thing I've noticed as I've been trying to mount the camera in here, very little of this tank is steel. Some of the armor plates are, but most of the vehicle is aluminium, outside and inside both. Overall, you know, I can't say I'm particularly thrilled. I mean, it's efficient. I can access everything I need to access. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. I just have a couple issues. One, I could do it a couple more cubic inches. Two, it's actually not all that easy to get in and out of this hatch. And three, of course, I am isolated. Technically, I could pull down the netting and crawl across the autoloader to get to the gunner side. But no, I'm just going to get out and go over the top. But it does mean that if somebody's wounded, yep, yeah, good luck. You're pulling them straight up in order to get at them. Right, gunner side. Ah! Okay, the gunner's side is kind of cozy, but yeah. I do have room. I mean that's the first thing. I have headroom. The seat will actually move back a little bit. So if you're one of those people that can't sit in an airplane seat for a long time, you might have a problem, but I definitely been in worse. Okay, so let's see what I have here. It's another turret lock on the left-hand side. Turret azimuth lock is what they call it. Pressure sensor, so there's another J-box forward and left here. I have the mess of things to my front. So top left, I see elevation drift and azimuth drift, these are adjustments. What'll sometimes happen with the stabilization system, when you activate it and you push in the palm switches, it might be counteracting a movement that doesn't actually exist. It's called drift. It's one of those really annoying little things. You can null it out with these controls. Looks like I have two visions, one's for daylight and one for night. So if I look into this left-hand side one here, I see a reticle that looks like your standard M1 type reticle. You look into it, you recognize your Delta reticle, except it is etched on. It's not lasered on, as it were, as on an M1. This appears to be a daylight over only. As if I look down, I see the LEDs for the range readout. There's a multiple return bar. There's a ready to fire light. They're not active, obviously, right now in this video, but you can see the trace outlines of where they would be. Reticle brightness, first return, last return option here. This does display. There was a knob here. It's obviously come off. On the right-hand side, this relaxed viewer here must be for the thermal, because you see power off on standby, contrast, brightness, black hot, white hot polarity. Magnification is 3 by and 10 by. Interesting, I do not see a magnification option for the daylight side, which, as the reticle is etched in, probably makes some sense. Incidentally, elevation is -8 plus 13, if I recall. Not a massive elevation, all things considered. The other thing I'll note is that the periscopes for the gun are located lower than the gun. So oftentimes the gunner on, let's say, an M1, he's got to be a little bit worried about height over bore. Because just because you can see the target doesn't mean that you can engage the target. You might still be behind, the gun tube might be behind an obstruction. Not the case for the gunner's sight in this vehicle. A little bit further to the right, there is the same auxiliary sight with the range reticle graduated sight as on the commander side. Alright, so the controls, well, I'm looking at a standard gunner's control handle. It's very nice and easy to rotate. Palm switch, what I would assume is the laser, and then a trigger. So what this last one does, this black button, I have absolutely no idea. I was wondering if maybe it might have been the coax trigger versus the main gun trigger. But as I'm looking at the armament control panel on the right, I see there's a toggle switch here for main and coax. There's armed and safe electrical. Ammunition types on offer are APDS, heat, HEP, APERS, anti-personnel, so that's basically a beehive round, and 2 spares for whatever you might want to throw in. Now, ordinarily you might think perhaps smoke, white phosphorus, that was around for the 105, but it cannot be stored horizontally, which is why it isn't in the M1 either. And of course, all the ammunition, all 18 rounds in this are stored horizontally. To the right is the autoloader with 8 rounds, a rotating drum, and behind me in the rear hull is the replenisher behind the zip ties. And you can see on the right where the ammunition gets drawn up and out to the back. So as I'm looking, you can see the extractors or the equivalents for grabbing the base of the round in order to pull it up and out. CCP, computer control panel on the right hand side here, stabilize on and off, looks like there's a battle side option. And then the autoloader, there's the options for, let's see what we have. Restock, eject, restow, i.e. take it out and put it back in. Normal, inventory, manual, and replenish. So those are your various options. Obviously, you'd have to tell the replenisher what ammunition is in which carousel then when it loads forward, because you can't actually see the ammunition going forward from the replenisher to the autoloader to verify what it is you're looking at. So you're going to have to tell it in the computer. Other things around here, what else do we have right here? Behind me, 1, 2, 3, 4 periscopes, and well, really just a whole lot of hydraulics, not much else in here. Lastly, as I'm looking down at my feet, the turret basket does kind of detach a little bit, so I could, in theory, go forward into the driver's hole, although I'm not sure why you would want to do that, because you do have that side access hatch for the driver, as well as there's a regular one up front. Finally, behind me, over my right shoulder, is the ammo chute for the 240, and as I'm looking at it, it's inconvenient to load. There's a small little hatch. You can see where it comes up from the main bin up through the chute. But in order to open it, there's actually there were 2 little hatches actually for opening it up and trying to stow the machine gun ammunition. So let's see what happens. You might have to actually pull the seat forward in order to do it. That's all it is, just hang the rims. There's a cable here. I'll bet it goes up to the machine gun and you can use it to charge the machine gun or clear jams maybe. Alright, so as I get out, two other items of note. First, the doghouse doors are manually closed. So there's a retention pin which will hold it in place. Now, of course, one of the reasons that these things exist is if you're under artillery fire, you close the doghouse doors, the gunner's primary sight housing more specifically, and it protects the optics against artillery. So in the M1 or the Bradley, you got shutters. I mean, a handle on the inside, you move the handle and the door closes. Looks like under fire in MGS, you got to stick your head out in order to protect the optics. Just how much do you value your optics over your head is a very good question in this context. And the other item is over my shoulder. I didn't mention it earlier, but this camera here on the side of the turret, it's a situational awareness camera. It's designed to give the commander a little bit more visibility of what's going on in the outside world. Now, frankly, I'm not entirely sure why you would use that camera over the auxiliary sight that he has, because that sight is located a little bit lower down. It's more used to see maybe if your gun tube is clear. The auxiliary sight, you'll see the housing. It's way back on the right-hand side behind the gun. You have to look kind of closely to see it. But it's there. Now, one thing I have heard is that it almost never worked for whatever reason. It was offline as often as it was online. No matter. Oh, and just for the sake of it, because I didn't mention it earlier, there's another, these pull pins, the quick release pins are all over the place, which I like, I have to say. The smoke box, I guess you'll call it, opens up. It's got little baffles in here. I don't know quite why you would ever want to open this up, because if you had to change the barrel for the machine gun, you'd have to open this up anyway, and you'd slide it up and back. But it's there. I'm sure somebody will tell me in the comments why you would ever need to open this up. Okay. So getting out of the gunner's side is a lot easier than getting out of the TC side, I will say. All right. And now we move forward to the driver's hole. Spring loaded. Looks like we got a couple of lock positions here. Although you do get a little bit worried if you imagine driving with this thing bouncing. Is the next bounce going to detach? Okay, that's the next open position. Next open position. So as I turn this handle, it's both affects the latches at the front here and the elevation lock at the back. And then there's a full open. Which you won't lock in, so I'll just lock it there. Nice big hatch. And in we get. Long way down. All right, so as I get in, it's actually very comfortable. So the seat is fixed in forward or backwards position where it is. I do have an elevation control on the right, and there's another control that's forward of that to move the pedals forwards or backwards. We saw this in a Lab 3, actually, a Canadian one. Big accelerator pedal, big brake pedal, and the left foot is just on a rest plate. Let's see if I can close the hatch. Actually, it's a little bit hard to get out. It's way up there. All right, hang on a second. So I kind of have to nose myself up here. Let's see. Nope. Hang on. There we go. Okay, so I rotate round, start bringing the hatch down to the partway position. Turn around, and let's finish the job. So now I have the hatch closed. Actually, this is very roomy, so I have a lot of space above my head, and I'm too low to use the periscope, so I'd have to actually turn on the power. I'm not sure I'm a fan of power-operated seats, but okay, I have to turn on the power and then elevate the vehicle. Now, the batteries are in the vehicle. I guess I could, in theory, try turning on massive power and see what happens. The batteries are located in a bin just behind me on the floor. But, yeah, I didn't ask for permission, so perhaps I better not. Otherwise, the horn button is right in the middle, it looks like, yep. Nice big steering wheel. Display to my front for the FLIR system. Automatic transmission. It has an economy mode, I like that. So drive, neutral, and reverse, so you have 3 regular positions, and if you do want to manually override them, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as regular gears. On the left-hand side, I'm looking at a speedometer. It goes up to 80. There's an hours counter, how many hours the engine has been going. It revs up to 3,000. Various power readings, fuel, pressure. The traditional old-fashioned light switch that hasn't changed since the 1940s. AFEPCEP. Oh, that's probably the fire system. A whole load of indicator lights on the left-hand side. Looks like road conditions. So perhaps this is for the, it is, because there's an air icon here for the inflation system. So it looks like road, rock, snow, and I don't know what the warning sign is. UK. Then if I go further back, I'm looking at a whole bunch of circuit breakers. And on the right-hand side, we have the communications J-box, and oh, that must be a release for one of the panels. And then there's a whole line of disconnect panels on the side here to access the engine compartment. Oh, air vents. There's one also on the roof behind me to blow backwards into the hull. Now, cooling was always a problem in this vehicle. In fact, I seem to vaguely recall a story that they would have to hang an IV bag up here, and the driver, to stay hydrated, would have an IV running straight into his arm, which seems less than optimal. But they did eventually install an AC system. I guess whatever power concerns they had, what have you, gave up. As I'm looking forward, what does this do? There's a couple of interesting cables and toggles way at the back here. I'm not even going to guess what they do. So let's see what happens if I open this up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, come on. Oh, there we go, 4. And we see, dun, dun, dun. The last access panel is this one way back here, right in front of the turret basket, which I have to assume is for transmission oil. I'm not going to open them all up. It's engine compartment. What can you say? Oh, I see the dome light, old-fashioned dome light to the right-hand side here, just over my right shoulder. So sure enough, if you come back the aisleway or hellhole, whatever they call it in a Stryker, you can get to this side hatch. There is indeed a lock on one side. You can pull it down. There's a sensor, it looks like here. And you should be able to push it. So there we go. So that's your side escape. Probably something that you'd have to close from the outside if you open it all the way. There we go. And that's dogged back in place. Shield, brightness, contrast, polarity. That's interesting. So we have controls here, and we have controls at the bottom of this screen. I wonder why that would be the case. Another light there. Oh, well, there's the master power. Oh, it's a circuit breaker block. I wonder if that's an NBC detector. Yeah. It looks like before they installed the aircon, so this is just aft of the main hatch. Before they installed the aircon, they had a small little fan. Then as you look further back, so that's the battery box down there. More hatches on the left hand side, and the intercom control box is mounted kind of inconveniently, I have to say, but it's not something that you have to access all that often once your radio is loaded and everything is set up correctly. Unfortunately, it's also where you'd hook up your MP3 player or CD player, whatever it was back in the day. So a little inconvenient to change the channel, whatever you're listening to. Over my shoulder, I see the seat belts. Guess you got to be kind of careful how you open these. All right, now the question is, what do they plug into? Because I didn't see anything I was sitting on. Aha. All right, so it looks like it's a multi-point restraint system. So I have a lap connector. Pull this down, and it eventually will connect in. And I can actually do it just in case it gets locked. I got the impression from pulling it that it's not actually working very well. But yeah, seatbelts. Also over my left shoulder is the newly installed air conditioning control box to replace that little fan. So to my left, there's a cylindrical housing here, which I suspect is for the suspension, because there's another one about wheel distance behind me on the left-hand side there. Right, I think that's all three positions. I like the driver's position on this vehicle. Of all the various AFVs I've played with, this is certainly one of the best ones. Vision is actually pretty good, it has to be said. One thing I don't have, in order to see where my edges are, I got to use the wing mirrors. The wing mirrors have to be up because I'm not able to see. Well, I can actually see the tips of the headlights and the protective bars, but it's very difficult to get a distance on them for some reason compared to the wing mirrors. Anyway, that's pretty much it. So time to get out and close up. And so in the traditional manner, oh bugger, the armored car is on fire, with the one caveat that I would have the 4-point harness. So either seatbelt cutters, which you might keep handy around somewhere, or you'd unclick. So unclick or cut. Pull back, push up, and crawl out. Well, that was easy. As all my gear is here, I don't care. Whatever. Thank you, Patreons, for helping me purchase the gear. More donations are always welcome to help improve the quality of the product that I put out to you, or to simply pay for the plane tickets. There you go, Stryker. Well, that is that. Now, it actually didn't enter low rate production until about 2004, by the time they worked out all the bugs. And well, frankly, it was still being produced until about 2010. Eventually, about 142 of these vehicles were built. Now, over time, the basis of issue reduced. So instead of having one per platoon, eventually it started going down to only one per company. And then eventually went down to none per company, because in 2021, it was announced that the MGS was going to be withdrawn, and in 2022 it actually was. Now, problems. Well, they never quite worked out all the kinks. When the vehicle worked, it worked very well. The problem was it just took so much hassle to keep it working that it wasn't considered worth the trouble. So with the development of the 30mm variant and improvements in other parts of the Stryker fleet, or indeed the Stryker brigade as a whole, it was decided that, you know, it's time for the MGS to go away. Overall, actually, I like it. So as I'm going over this vehicle, and it's nice to go over a modern vehicle again. I mean, last one I did was the British Aerospace MPF version, just directly, literally across the way from this vehicle, and performs very much the same job. But I am very impressed as to how user-friendly this vehicle is. I mean, yeah, okay, the TC's position is perhaps a little bit suboptimal, but the rest of it, maintenance is easy. All the quick release hatches open things up. Nothing's too heavy for me to lift. If it is too heavy, like the hood, there's hydraulic assists. The sensor suite is fine, so you got the 2 thermal imagers. This actually performed pretty well, especially for an interim combat vehicle, which of course it turned out not to be very interim. But no matter. Okay, again, I would like to thank the National Armour and Cavalry Collection for letting me crawl over the vehicle. And of course, as mentioned, the Patreons who have been good enough to fund me in order to get out and continue making these videos. So I hope you found it all interesting and informative. And I will talk to you in the next one. Take care.